Okay, so I'm here again, and art comes in different forms. And as you know, on Thursdays, we like to do different arty things. And right about now, I have a book review. And our book for today is titled The Thin Line, and this is by Uwana Essien. She is a trained journalist and communications specialist. This great piece is definitely for people who desire a conflict-free, romantic relationship. And I believe that this book is actually very needed, and this topic is very needed. Because, I mean, earlier we were talking about cohabiting and talking about how you need to literally know what your partner is like before you decide to marry the person, so you literally avoid certain things. First of all, what is your take on that?
I overheard you discussing about marriage, and, you know, I always tell people, marriage is a lot of work. Relationship is a lot of work, whether it's with your spouse or your family or your friends. It's something that you need to put in effort. You don't just go into it without preparation.
Very true.
And a lot of people take friendship for granted. They take love for granted. And that's when they start crossing that thin line. And once that thin line is crossed, just
that thin line. Now let's talk about this thin line. Can you define the thin line? What is that thin line?
Okay, so they said there is a thin line between love and hate. So,
very true.
And you wonder why people who are so much in love, they are into themselves, and after a few months, they become sworn enemies. Like, what's really happened to these people? So that's the thin line. Once it is crossed, it's very difficult. And, you know, the more reason I wrote this book, it's about spousal killings.
Wow.
If you had read the book, you'll see that one of the characters killed the other person, and it's worrisome because it's on the increase. And
very true.
It's on the increase. It's becoming a recurring decima in our society, and we need to talk about it.
Very true.
What happens to two people who are so much in love and they end up killing themselves? So we should take that into consideration and talk about how not to cross the thin line. So this book is here to provide solutions to individuals on how to manage their relationships properly.
Okay. So now I want to ask you this question, which might seem a little bit personal. Why did you decide to write it? Because I believe people that actually take out time to sit down, because I believe writing is not something that is easy, right? It's something you have to put a lot of discipline into, right? So for you to actually have sat down to say, you know what, I want to write this book, why? What was that experience that took you to that place?
Okay, so when I was 15 years old, I had a neighbor who stabbed his wife to death.
Wow.
And that memory hasn't left me since then, because it was shocking. And as a young girl, I admired the way they love themselves. So waking up to discover that tragic incident left a memory, a sad one. And during the pandemic, we were waking up to stories every day about spousal killings.
Very true.
And I said, no, we have to talk about this. That's why I wrote the book.
Oh, yeah, now. So what solutions did you prefer? And something I also love, because by the time I started reading it, I realized that you didn't just go straight. As you said, it's not like a typical book that you read on relationships and all of that, telling you what to do and what not to do. It actually carries a lot of stories on the inside. So I love the way you actually put it, because, I mean, lessons are learned quicker by stories. So now tell me, what solutions did you prefer in this book?
Okay, so I try to cover a lot of topics that causes us to cross the thin line, like finance, like dishonesty, like lack of trust and the rest. But one thing I would like to say is nothing is worth the life of anybody.
Very true.
And most of the conflict that arise in relationship can actually be worked on or can actually be resolved. So what works for everyone is different in relationship. So it's important that you do what works for you. But my own is don't cross the thin line. Try to respect the other person every time.
Okay, so now I want you to tell me about chapter 2, third parties. So just give me a brief run-through of the third parties.
Okay, so my perspective about third parties is in two ways. Okay, so we say don't allow people to come into your relationship. Try to resolve issues with your spouse or your friend, you know. Don't allow somebody to hear what is going on. But when you are in an abusive relationship, it's good that you talk to someone. You don't just keep things to yourself, and it will end up escalating. And in other parts of the book, I talked about the role of the family, the role of religious leaders, and the role of the force in handling domestic violence. Okay, so if say I'm being abused by my husband, and I go to my father to cry, and I say, oh, Dad, my husband is abusing me. And he said, oh, you pray about it, go back home and resolve your issues with your spouse, you know. And this is where the third party should help me, because I've gone to him to cry. I think I saw a movie yesterday where the lady went back to her father to cry, and the father said, go back and resolve your issue. And she went back and she got killed. Wow. You know, so the same thing applies to religious leaders. You go to them, they say, oh, you pray, you fast. And I keep telling people, why not tell the other person to change, at least, to respect me and not cross the thin line? Instead of you telling one person to keep bearing the burden, to keep enduring the pain, which is not right. I also moved to the police force. You go to the police station to cry, to say, oh, I'm being abused by my spouse. They laugh at you and say, especially for men who are being abused, oh, your wife is abusing you. Are you not a man? Go back home and resolve your issue. We don't interfere in family issues, which is, you know, totally wrong. One thing about domestic violence is those people know that they do it and they get away with it.
Very true. Very
if
true.
they know that, oh, if I get caught, or even if I don't kill someone, I just lay my finger on my spouse, I'll get this punishment.
They will not do it.
They will not do it again.
Very true. I mean, thank you so much. I mean, this is a very interesting read. You actually covered a whole lot. I mean, you spoke about divorce, finances, friends, third parties, careers, and so much more. And it's actually a very good read, and it's like a help manual for those in romantic relationships. Thank you so much for being on the show. I'd love to go on, but at this point, I have to go. Okay, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, Wake Up Nigeria continues.